No, I actually abandoned the Patreon page a little while ago,
Oh dear.
and there was two reasons for it. One was that, put it this way, my when I was home in my own apartment with lockdowns and everything, I was cranking out material like crazy. Once you get married, that sort of
Hmm.
comes to a screeching halt. So my time, and that was between work and being married and all that other stuff. It was like I just felt like I had no time to do anything, which I'm trying to remedy. But I was really starting to feel a little guilty that I had the Patreon still running, and it was there. People were dropping off like flies, but there were still people who were there, and I was like, this isn't right. So I said, let me stop this for a little while until I know I can get back to making some regular content. The other part of that was that I did my taxes last year. And what used to be this great little side hustle that Uncle Sam didn't seem to know or care about, well, that changed real quick. And it seemed
Mm.
like almost every penny that I made off the Patreon, they seem to want back.
Oh God.
Um, so it was sort of two reasons why I kind of put the kibosh on it for a little while.
God, that is a son of a bitch because I had the same thing with my Redbubble page. So I
Mm,
do all like these crazy drawings of Bond and just like I don't tell anyone about it, but I just put it up on Redbubble. Every now and again I get a sale through, but it goes to my business account. Then I've
mm-hmm.
got to flag that up as a tax. I'm like, well, that 28p that I made off that mug that I sold with a drawing of Daniel Craig on, I've now got to discuss and have a
Right. All of
and
a sudden now you're
yeah.
getting you're getting
Yeah.
tax forms in January for things that you kind of forgot about even. So,
Yeah.
yeah, they got a little
HMRC.
aggressive.
HMRC will come after you. They will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose they have to move with the times, don't they? They always have done. They have to play to contemporary audiences. So that's probably where their thinking is, I would say. I don't know.
Where do you come in on that, Joe?
Well, I think two things can be true at once. I do think that Bond has to evolve with the times, and I think we see that. That's why, I mean, it's funny, when I was writing the books and laying things out, I would have sections that I would call Bond the Sportsman. And I would say, golf, scuba diving. These are the sort of things that an old school gentleman would do for sport. There's a whole other era of sports that I would call extreme sports, like rock climbing and bungee jumping and things like that, that reflect
Snowboarding.
kind of right. These are all later Bond films, things that sort of became. But I do 100% agree with the part about Bond needing to be incorruptible, and I think that a great example for me is On Her Majesty's Secret Service when he's sitting with Draco and Draco offers him
Mm.
£1 million to date his daughter, which you think would be a no brainer for anybody else. Bond simply says, "I don't need £1 million,"
Mm.
which kind of is sort of mind blowing when you think about it, because you see, like, who can be that comfortable in their own skin and that complete that I don't need you to try to buy me with something. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't need it at all.
Yeah.
He's saying it 100% honestly.
And he's so
I don't need
loyal.
it.
He's so
Yes.
loyal to his country, to his job. Look at Skyfall, country, England, without
Yes.
hesitation.
Oh God, I
Straight on.
punched
Right.
the air in the cinema when I heard that. I was like,
Yeah, me too. Me too. Country, England.
Yep.
yeah.
No hesitation. Straight down
Absolutely.
the line. Yeah, that's his life. That is his job. That is why he's on this earth to work for England, to work for the Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
So my question is like for Americans though, I never thought that Bond really liked America as much. I mean, I think is it in the Hildebrandt rarity? He thinks that America comes into fast money and they never really gained it as quick. And then Fleming slags off New York in one of the short stories as well. So
And yeah, he does in Thrilling
uh,
Cities. Oh boy,
yeah,
does he
is
does
it?
he beat the hell out of New York City?
So I'm wondering where the love for Bond comes from an American point of view. Maybe you can speak to that.
Mm,
I think it really it speaks more to universal qualities than anything else, to universal traits that we all admire. I think a lot of us over here, um we're still very much Anglophiles, and we sort of I think to the American, Great Britain and the UK, and I mean it's kind of the old school. I would almost say, I don't want to use the word deity, but it almost has almost sort of a religious quality, where we sort of regard it as the best part of us. When we were our most sophisticated, our most cultured, um, that was sort of. I watch movies now. It's funny. I will be the first one to criticize where we are today in today's society, and I say, if you watched a film from the 40s, where everyone is dressed
Oh
nicely
yeah,
and
yeah.
they go to dinner and everyone dresses up for dinner and everyone is polished. You look at that, and then you look at a movie like Mad Max, where it's the post-apocalypse. What do we look more like at this point? I would argue that
That's a good point.
you go to Walmart today, and it's looking a little more Mad Max than it is anything
Yeah.
from prior to the
Oh,
50s.
you only have to go through like the lounge at Heathrow, and like
Right.
people are in their pajamas, they've got their shoes
Right.
and socks off, and they've
Right.
got their trotters up on the desk on the coffee tables. I'm like, mate, this is not your fucking living room. This is a
Oh,
lounge.
Appalling.
It is brutal. So I think that we all do we all do pine for those days when, honestly, the idea that I would put on a tux to go down and play cards with my buddies after dinner. It's a whole different world. So I think that, so again, I do think a lot of it falls down to, we are still fascinated with, the queen and the queen's English, and this proper that we used to have, that we all came from. That, and again, James Bond is still harboring those things. It's funny when you watch a modern James Bond film and you see them struggling to figure out, how are we going to get James Bond into the tux? And I've had this conversation with people trying to explain James Bond. I watch a movie from the 40s, 50s, 60s with like Dean Martin and all these guys, and they're all still wearing the tuxes. And I sort of explain to people, like, people today look at James Bond in the tuxedo as if this is his Superman outfit, like this is a superhero costume, like this is just the outfit that Bond wears. And I usually have to explain to people, this is just what gentlemen wore in their evenings, when back in the day, that in the time of Fleming.
Man talk.
Please inform.
So the answer to your question, I think you're trying to ask very gently, is are we going to see volume 2? And the answer is yes.
Fantastic. Hold on, let me do my
yeah. I basically made the commitment. I said I will either show up to the next Gather All, which I would assume would be late summer. Either I'm going to show up with a copy of volume 2, or I'm going to show up dressed as Dolly from Moonraker. One or the other. So
Rob, what would you rather?
Now there's a question, but would you have braces?
That's a great question. I still go with the idea that she did not have braces, and the only reason why I can remember watching VHS copies of that movie, and I can remember watching it with friends and friends' parents who happened to just be looking, going, "Oh, watch, she's gonna have braces. She's gonna have braces." Like, it was the joke that you thought they're not gonna miss this one, and it went, and it was like, no, she didn't.
Ingenious.
Well, this is why I think JBR will come back as soon as there's something to talk about.
No, they won't.
You don't think so?
No, that ship sailed.
Yeah.
Because
right.
Because they never did part 2 of the Watches of Bond, and that was in the can. That never came back. And Tom is adamant he doesn't have the time. He's a dad. He doesn't have the time. Chris doesn't have the time. He's traveling the world with his job. They just don't have the time anymore. Their lives have changed.
I think time I think people carve out time when they really want to get on the microphone and talk about something new. If they go, right, let's talk about A View to a Kill for the 100th time, like, I guess we can go for IMDb and get some trivia together. Maybe I can get the, we can find some extra that was doing something. But if there's something that is brand new and hot, by the way, JBR still has an audience. Like people still listen to the podcast. The podcast stream's still live,
and they're still on social media.
So
they'll always be on social media. That will never go. They'll have the JBR page on Facebook, on Instagram, but Facebook is the main thing that Chris posts stuff on.
Mm.
But that is, I mean, Tom just doesn't have the time, you know.
Hey,
And,
look,
as I say, Chris,
I won't
Chris
speak
is
for
so
others,
busy
but-
with his job.
Mm.
Because we've said this to them. We're like, oh, please come back. And they're like, no.